nutrition is a very, very professional and scientifically rigorous area of nutrition, because the idea is to keep our soldiers healthy and our troops fit, because they're responsible for the defense of our country.
In order to reduce nutritional deficiencies, armies have adopted standardized rations. Before World War I, meals were simply meat, bread, and occasionally fresh vegetables. The first individual ration, designed not to require cooking, used in America was the iron ration, which was used during World War I, though it was only for emergency use. However, later in the war and after it, the reserve ration, which could be eaten outside of emergencies, was introduced. There was almost no variety, except that there were 2 possible meats. The rations also included cigarettes. Immediately before World War II, in 1938, the C ration, another canned ration, was created. It initially had 6 menus, which are combinations of the meat and bread/dessert cans. There were initially 3 meat cans: beef and pork with beans, carrots and potatoes, or hash, and though more options were added later, some were very unpalatable among troops, such as ham and lima beans. The bread/dessert cans included crackers, soup or drink mix, and candy. The drink mixes were added because they provided soldiers with vitamin C. Shortly after the creation of the C ration, in 1942 the K ration was created, which was designed to provide calorically dense, compact meals for 3 days or less during an assault. It consisted of 3 meals, each with biscuits, coffee, and milk dextrose tablets, and either sausage, pork, or veal. All 3 meals combined weighed just 2 pounds. However, it was not as nutritionally balanced as other rations, so in situations where troops were forced to eat it over long periods of time, they became malnourished. By 1948, K rations were stopped, but surplus C rations were still being used in the Vietnam War. Several specialized rations were also introduced, including short-term survival foods for life rafts on boats and planes, and mountain-optimized meals that had more calories and could be cooked at higher altitudes. Then, in 1958, Meal Combat Individual, or MCI, rations were created. They offered a wider variety of food, with 12 varieties of meat cans, 3 varieties of bread cans, and 3 varieties of dessert cans. In addition, monotony was decreased through sub-variations, such as different types of cheese for biscuits. These items were combined to form 12 different menus. However, MCIs were not without their disadvantages. Each meal weighed between 1.8 and 2.7 pounds. Additionally, the MCIs still utilized cans, which could rattle in a backpack, which would be bad in a combat situation. So, some soldiers had to wrap them in socks.
So, what were some specific nutritional problems in MCIs?
Even at that time, there was a concern about rising obesity and overweight in the military, and how to keep the military fit through a more healthy diet under different operating conditions, under different conditions that the military are in. For example, under garrison conditions in normal military installations, or during Arctic patrols, or working in deserts in adverse climates. What are the nutritional needs of the military in all those different situations, and on ships? Those are all very different environments than what we typically face in the civilian population.
Also, until 1975, MCIs included cigarettes, although the soon-to-be created MREs did not include cigarettes from the start. MREs, or meals ready to eat, were adopted as the official ration of the U.S. Army in 1975, though they were used alongside other surplus rations for several years, and heavy development continued through the 80s. Instead of being packaged in cans, MREs were in sealed packets, which significantly reduced their weight, down to 1.1 to 1.6 pounds per MRE. Army Regulation 40-25, the Military Recommended Dietary Allowances, or MDRA, defines the nutritional requirements of soldiers in various environments, from caloric intakes to vitamins and minerals. It provides guidelines for creating rations, and an updated version was released in 1985. Dr. West worked on the team of experts at the Pentagon that updated the regulation.
Well, when I was in the Army Medical Specialist Corps, I was working as a dietitian in military hospitals, and that was a long time ago. That was from 1971 to 1976 as an active duty dietitian. At that time, I worked at Walter Reed Army Medical Center, at the Walson Army Hospital at Fort Dix, and then I spent 2 years at the Army Hospital in Okinawa, Japan, working as a clinical dietitian. But when I was working on the military diet in a broader policy way, that was as a reserve officer at the Pentagon from 1979 or 80 to 1984. At that time I didn't have people working under me. I was working as a consultant to the Office of the Surgeon General at the Pentagon.
What tasks did you do in the Division of Preventive Medicine of the Office of the Surgeon General?
What kinds of tasks did I do?
Yes.
So when I was assigned there as a reserve officer, I was given a document one day, and that document was Army Regulation 40-25, which is called the Military Nutritional Standards. And I was asked to update it. And I remember seeing this document as a dietetic intern when at Walter Reed Hospital in 1971 and 72, and thinking that this is one document that really needs to be overhauled. And then a decade goes by, and it was put on my desk, and my commanding officer said, please overhaul this regulation. And so I began working with other military nutrition experts assigned at the Pentagon. And over the course of 4 years, we started to tear this regulation apart, look at it in relation to recommended dietary allowances that were issued for the civilian population, and began to put it back together again as it might best relate to and guide the intakes of the military, the Army, Air Force, Marines, and Navy.
So, how did the military recommended dietary allowances affect MREs?
The MREs were developed at Natick Laboratories, and I wasn't working up there. But part of the process was to try to understand what are the dietary needs of the military, and for those groups of soldiers that need to eat MREs, how did the MREs best align with and provide the nutrition that was needed to soldiers based on what we call the military recommended dietary allowances. So you have a regulation, you have a policy, it's based on need, and then you have products that try to meet those needs, and that's where the MREs come in.
Challenges were there in changing the rations?
In changing the rations. So that brings in the research that has to go on. And while I didn't carry out the research to test those rations, the MREs routinely undergo evaluation through trials, through intervention trials, feeding trials, where soldiers are given the MREs or not, or different parts of those MREs, and they're followed to see how healthy they are with respect to maintaining their weight, with respect to general nutritional status and other outcomes. So the military is very careful about evaluating the rations that are given to the troops with respect to their acceptability, their shelf life, their wholesomeness, their taste, of course, which is often challenged by a variety of people, but the attempt is to make them delicious, so that the soldiers and sailors and airmen and Marines eat all of them, because that's when you get your best nutrition, is if you eat the entire MRE. And so research goes on to try to discern, how to make the MREs better, given the conditions that soldiers find themselves.
MREs are continually improved. To further reduce monotony, the amount of menus was doubled to 24, and every year, the most unpopular menus are replaced with new menus. Another example of an improvement to MREs, in this case due to technology, was the time temperature indicator, which are on MRE boxes. Although MREs could have very long shelf lives, they vary depending on temperature. The inner circle of the time temperature indicator darkens slowly in colder weather and quicker in hotter weather. So when the inner circle is darker than the outer circle, the MREs are spoiled. Beginning in 1990, flameless ration heaters were included in MREs. These were pouches that contained magnesium and iron, and when a small amount of water was added, they would heat up in an exothermic chemical reaction to provide hot food.
And do you know why? I mean, why do you think they have this very light heating packet instead of a pot and a little stove?
So they can carry it with them more easily.
They can carry it with them, and another reason is that this does not show up on detection with detection systems. So if you have a fire, heat is detectable through modern whatever the detection systems are in the military. So if you heat this food up, it doesn't show up on radar screens and modern systems. So you are invisible. Your food is being heated up, but not so that the enemy can't see it happen.
Do you have any other information you would like to share?
That the military is a large population, and so it is a special population that we should approach in a public health way, that it is a large population of Americans that need to be looked after in terms of their public health needs, nutrition, health, how they age, how they stay fit, their mental health, and how their families are cared for. And so, how a family is cared for affects how military personnel do their job, if they're happy. And so we need to be approaching the military just as we do public health problems. That's a very important population, and we should bring all that we know about public health into focus when we try to improve the quality of life, the nutrition and health of our military.